Let's film in Bob and Saracen still. Let's see what they're saying.
No problem. Teach your children how to fly.
So basically he's saying, if Muslims rule the world, not all non-Muslims are going to die. We're going to kill them all.
Okay?
This is what he's saying.
I'll give you a better one.
Well, let's talk to
On
him.
Friday, this Friday, a 15-year-old Palestinian in Gaza was killed. And to be honest, I've seen the footage, and you're left with one question for me. One question. Why would everybody knows that when Palestinians try to breach the Gaza fence between Israel,
which is their own land.
That's your opinion. That's your opinion. It's not my opinion.
So what happened before the Balfour Convention?
What is the Balfour Convention?
When England gave them the rights to live in the land.
They never. It's not called the Balfour Convention, for one.
What is it then?
It's a Balfour Declaration, which had nothing to do with the creation of Israel. It was the paper on which Britain were awarded the mandate of that region.
Who gave Britain the rights to say to Israel you can live in
They didn't. When it came to the vote in the 1947 partition plan,
who voted?
Britain abstained from the vote. 33 nations voted to recognise Israel, and 13 nations voted not to
Where were they before
recognise
that?
Where was who? I've got Jewish friends who've lived in that region for hundreds and hundreds of years. I've got friends who lived in Gaza before they were kicked out by the Egyptians when the Egyptians conquered Gaza in 1948.
Talking about the Egyptians. How are you doing?
Thank you.
How are you?
You know,
I don't know. We did it once last week. We did it for 2 hours. I don't know if I want to go there again.
No, man,
truthfully, I found the conversation really disrespectful last week.
No problem. I mean, there's a lot of things we find disrespectful as well. One of them being is your lack of acknowledgement of Palestinian suffering. The thing is, what we can all agree upon, I think if we're honest and objective about the situation, if we look at it from 19...
So just...
Hold on.
No, before we start, I'm
cut
only
me
doing
off.
this with you. No, I'm saying...
Go ahead.
The conditions I was talking is if everyone else keeps quiet, no one runs to you with the phone to back you up, because what always happens, it's me versus 100 as opposed to me...
There's no 100 here.
Between you and him, yeah.
Okay, then 1 versus 1. Everybody.
Okay, so...
Let me put my camera away as well, because last time it was 2 hours and it really wore me out.
Alright, I was going to say to you, Joseph, the first thing we all have to understand, let's just state facts for a second. The facts are as follows, yeah? That upon the invention or the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, in May the 15th, or whatever it was, there was a mass exodus of, let's say, 700,000 Palestinian individuals. They were displaced, and that became 5.5 million refugees, according to the UN. We can't deny the fact that Palestinians have been displaced from a home they had once called their own. Now, whether you want to put that down to the Holocaust or not, that's aside the point. Actually, this is a conflation of different points. My point to you is, do you deny the fact that there has been a systematic ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian communities from, I wouldn't even start from the 1948, I'll start from the 1930s up until the establishment of Israel in 1948, in the form of groups like Irgun, groups like the Haganah, who are meant to be the moderate version of Irgun, coming together premeditatedly using files which we now have access to because of the 1998 military files that the Israeli government let loose, primary source materials, which stipulate that there's been these village files which show that these groups that were before the establishment of Israel had topographical information, demographical information, all of which outlined how many villages there were, how many people lived in those villages, and what to do to get those Arabs out of those villages and to replace those Arabs with Jews. Now tell me, in your mind, give me one reason why that is not a racist establishment of a state, and how that is this Jewish exclusivization or this racial prejudice that the Zionist movement had at its core, how it is not, at its heart, actually a racist movement. Can you explain that to me, please?
Okay, so to respond to the many mistruths that you said then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so if you want to talk about ethnic cleansing, the first thing you need to do is just look at things logically. So if you're looking at things logically, and you look at the areas that the Palestinians control, yeah?
What now?
Yeah, now, Area A or the Gaza Strip,
go ahead.
Yeah? Not one Jew resides there. Because the Jordanians...
Okay.
I was quiet all the way through you.
I just said okay.
Okay. So, when the Jordanians conquered the West Bank and
Conquered.
conquered Jerusalem. Yeah, they conquered it, and they declared it part. They declared the West Bank part of Jordan, as I'm sure you know.
Okay.
And the British recognised this usurping of the land and declaring it as Jordanian. So when the Jordanians conquered the West Bank, they enacted a law that said Jews aren't allowed to live here. The Palestinian National Authority has continued that law and forbade any Jew from living in Area A. When the Egyptians conquered Gaza in 1948, they also enacted a law which forbade any Jew from living there. I've got Jewish friends of mine that come from the Gazan Jewish community that were expelled from their home, ethnically cleansed from their home.
Ethnically
and driven
cleansed
out.
from their home.
I was quiet for you. I was quiet.
That sentence doesn't make sense in English.
Just be respectful. Be respectful. I was very.
Go ahead, sir.
I was very.
Go ahead, sir.
And okay, I'll hold this for now. And so.
Now you look like a real ideal.
And so, Jews were ethnically cleansed from Gaza. Jews were ethnically cleansed from Jordanian West Bank and Jerusalem.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, if you look at the population...
When was that? Are you talking about after 2000?
This is 1948.
Oh, 1948. Okay, just so I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I said when they conquered the land. That's when Egypt conquered the land, as you know.
Yeah.
But just for those
No, there were three wars.
Yes,
1948,
when
1967,
when
1973.
Egypt conquered Gaza, that was 1948. When Jordan conquered the West Bank.
Okay, no problem.
No, okay, you're either for Palestinian independence and
You can calm down and continue your point.
Okay, you're either for. So I'll finish and I'll bring this into it because you interrupted me and I have to respond to that. You're either for Palestinian sovereignty.
You're going all over the place with
I'm
your
not-
points now. Just finish one point at a time.
Okay, Mohammed, if you dictate, I won't debate you. If you say how I have to answer you, I won't debate you.
Okay.
I was respectful and listened to every
Well,
word you said.
go ahead.
Now,
Don't worry about that.
okay, if I don't know English as well as you,
I didn't
then
say anything
mazel
about,
tov. Then mazel
I
tov.
didn't say anything about English right now.
But you forget.
He's just getting angry. I don't know why you're getting so angry, my
But
friend.
you said about. Sorry.
No, hold on. Just let him finish. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I just remind you, we all are all going to die, and all our opinions will go by the time we're dead.
So he spoke the truth, doesn't he?
And so my point is very simple. 0 Jews live in the Palestinian areas, the Palestinians control. 20% of Israelis are Arab. They have complete equality. If you actually go to Israel, all the signs are in Arabic and Hebrew. Their rights are completely protected. They have complete equality. So if you want to talk about ethnic cleansing,
Do you mind if
look, 20% of Israelis are Arab, 0 Palestinians
Do you
are
mind? Do you want to
Jewish.
do timing? Because I feel here that you've taken a bit more time. So I'll just respond to you anyways. This is an unbelievable, ridiculous claim that you've just made here. The Gaza Strip is blockaded. There is a blockade on the Gaza Strip. People cannot go in and not come out. You're talking about Jews don't live in Israel. That's only after 2005 where Ariel Sharon decided to take the settlements, which were illegal settlements according to UN, illegal settlements according to the international community. Not one country recognized them in Gaza or the West Bank. Ariel Sharon decided to take those last individuals that lived in the Gaza Strip out of the Gaza Strip in 2005. What you're saying is, actually there's no Jews living in Gaza. What a ridiculous claim to make. No Palestinian can come out of Gaza or come into Gaza. You're talking about no Jews coming into Gaza as if it's some kind of tourist resort which stops Jews from coming in because of some anti-discrimination law. How ridiculous are the claims that you're making, my friend? That's point number one. Point number two, you're talking about ethnic cleansing. He's here talking about ethnic cleansing. Tell me what ethnic cleansing means to you. For me, ethnic cleansing could either mean one of two things: genocide and or expulsion from the land. Now you have to explain to me how it is that Palestinians who lived in Palestine could possibly ethnically cleanse a Jewish immigrant community who came from Europe. That makes no sense in any way, shape or form, unless you think, as biblical scholars that you and I both know would say, do think, that actually those individuals that are the Jews have an inherent biblical right to the homeland. Which is that your opinion? You can explain that in your rebuttal. So if you do think that, then you can potentially make a case for ethnic cleansing. But otherwise, it's the most ridiculous, absurd comment that you could make in this discussion right here and right now. Especially considering also that almost every 2 years or every once in a while, periodically, you find that the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, they attack and bombard the already blockaded Gaza Strip. In 2006 they attacked Lebanon. In 2014 they attacked, 2008 they attacked Gaza. In 2014 they attacked Gaza. And knowing full well that there is a discrepancy and disparity in the strength and the size of the military capabilities of either the Gazans and or comparative to the IDF. That is what you call ethnic cleansing. That is a systematic ethnic cleansing which started before the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 and continues until this day, and is only acquiesced to by the political elites because of the Israeli lobby and other such forces which act as a crippling force for those who want to speak the truth. Now, you can have your opportunity to speak the truth right here and now, or you can decide to be as racist, and I'm going to use the word racist, and completely unfair in terms of your analysis as you have been in considering that there's been an ethnic cleansing of Jewish people and not an ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. It seems like you don't want to open your eyes to what's happening to Palestinian people. You can only have that belief. You can only have that position if you yourself value Jewish blood more than Muslim or Palestinian blood. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, you're getting your dates massively mixed up, mate.
Okay,
So
go ahead and correct me.
I said in 1948, Egypt conquered Gaza, yeah? So
You said this before.
yeah, I know, but you said you started talking about the disengagement plan in 2005. I'm saying
Yeah,
the Jews
we're not talking just about 1948.
No, I'm saying the Jews.
Shut up. It's all just digital information in a virtual reality.
Do you want to someone time him? Give him 3 minutes. 3 minutes is good, yeah? 3 minutes is good, because that way we can't accuse each other.
Chicks another time.
Give him 3 minutes. 3 minutes good for you.
3 minutes good.
Give him 3 minutes, I won't talk. Go ahead.
So I'll address. We're kind of going around in circles, but just want to establish, when I talked about the Jews being ethnically cleansed, that was in 1948 by the Egyptians and the Jordanians. And then the laws were continued by the Palestinians when they took control. That's that. So you can talk about the disengagement plan, but you're confusing your dates. The second point, you started talking about actual populations being driven out of places. If you actually look at the Jewish communities from, say, your country, Egypt, that's where I was told by, I think, you, that you're originally from, an Egyptian. The Jews were driven from Egypt. The Jews were driven from all of the Muslim world. We'd lived there before the birth of Islam, and then the Muslims drove us out of those lands. 1 million Jewish refugees had to flee to either Israel, America, or Europe. Yeah, 1 million Jewish refugees. That's ethnic cleansing. We only need to look at simple demographics. We only need to look at how many Palestinians or how many Arabs live in Israel today and how many Jews live in Palestinian-controlled areas or Muslim nations to witness where the real ethnic cleansing. You can put all your propaganda spin on it as you want, but numbers speak louder than words. And there is a large population of Arabs who have complete equality with their Jewish counterparts in Israel. You will not find that equality in almost any Muslim nation. For instance, in the Jewish state, there are Muslim, in the Jewish state Israel, there are Muslim politicians, there are Arab political parties, yeah? You won't find that in Saudi Arabia. How many Jewish politicians are there in Saudi Arabia? How many Jewish politicians are there in Egypt? The reality is in this conversation is you can't tolerate, you personally, not all Muslims, you can't tolerate a Jewish state. You would much rather we were under you, like throughout history, where we were the dhimmi and we were under you. You don't want to look at me as an equal, you want to look at me underneath you, paying the jizya, belonging to a Muslim state. I don't want that. I want equality with you. I want Jews and Muslims to be equal. We come from great faiths and great traditions. Great faiths and great traditions.
Keep going.
And so the difficulty here is you cannot accept a Jewish state. You cannot tolerate a Jewish state. It's that simple, and I don't need 3 minutes. That's
Okay, he doesn't need 3 minutes. That was very nice and easy for me, yeah? See, look, he's had to resort to straw-manning my arguments. He's had to resort to inventing a discourse which was never had, a narrative that was never made by me, and words that I've never said. So he said, you can't tolerate this, and you can't tolerate that, and you can't... Well, to be honest with you, had Chaim Wiseman got his... Chaim Wiseman, okay, when he originally when the proposition was originally made for him for the Jewish nation to be in Uganda, and he said no because, and he wrote a full letter, which you can see online, a full letter saying no, why should it be Uganda when our original place of origin is Palestine? And he had the same argument that this man just had. It's a biblical argument. It's an argument of So hold on, excuse me. Actually, it relies explicitly on the Bible. It relies explicitly on the biblical Old Testament narrative of David, King Solomon, which some agnostic and atheistic historians don't even believe existed. So it does rely on biblical information. No other nation in the world makes a case for its existence using racial and biblical reasoning. And that is only applicable now in the secular world, in the Western world, the Western Hemisphere, which is meant to be secular, because the Israeli lobby and other such strong, and other such influencers have been able to,
We're not good enough.
and other such influencers have been able to, yeah. It's okay, it's alright. Yeah, have been able to cripple the Western power elites into saying and doing things they wouldn't otherwise do and say. You're talking about 1948. Let me mention exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about the war with all of those Arab countries that went in to invade. And the Gaza Strip the Gaza Strip and the West Bank were the only two things that were recovered. And that was what it was. It was a recovery. It was a war of recovery of land. It was not a war of invasion of land. For you to think it was a war of invasion of land would mean to think that you think that the complete de-Arabization of the whole of the Palestinian region, which by the way happened, if you look at the demographical data before 1948, May 15th, you'll realize that majority of de-Arabization had already happened. Why? Because of the plans of those terrorist groups, which you failed to condemn, by the way. He failed to condemn the terrorist groups of Irgun, who everybody almost consensually unanimously agrees are terrorist organizations who worked hard and actually collaborated with the Nazis. The Irgun collaborated with the Nazis. And he's telling me about anti-Semitism. The Irgun who collaborated with the Nazis, okay, the Irgun who collaborated with the Nazis went into a hotel and shot some people who were British and other people who were Palestinians. And they did so with civilians. Will you condemn such an attack on those civilians?
Mohammed,
yes or no? Yes or no? Go ahead.
Mohammed, you have to stick to a subject. Every time we talk about the King David. You're jumping. You accuse me of jumping around all over.
Give it 3 minutes, yeah? Yeah.
You accuse me of jumping all over. I'm actually struggling to keep up with the amount of different straw men you're building. You're putting words in my mouth. You're saying that my claim is biblical. It's never been biblical. You're saying that I'm talking about anti-Semitism. I haven't mentioned the word anti-Semitism once in this debate. So what I would request is you concentrate on what I'm telling you and respond to my actual points.
Go ahead, sir.
Rather than my straw men. So in response to the biblical claims that you're making, not me, so no Jew that I know that's actually serious in the Zionist movement or the pro-Israel movement bases their claims on religious reasons. Almost whenever they talk about the Jews living there, it's from an archaeological perspective.
Okay.
We dig up Hebrew, which is thousands of years old. We dig up Jewish artifacts that go back thousands of years. We dig up Jewish remains, Jewish burial grounds constantly. So when Jews say they have a historical claim to the land, it's exactly that, a historical claim. Not based on the Bible, based on hard archaeology. Yeah? Now only a fool or someone with a serious political agenda would deny that the Jews lived in that region. So I'll actually ask you just very quickly.
No. You can finish your segment and then you can ask me all the questions. You didn't answer my question.
Okay.
And you didn't want to condemn the terrorists, so go ahead and finish your segment.
So for those that want to know my position on the King David bombing, we did a 2-hour debate last week where I explained why it was a military attack against a British military HQ.
Okay.
Yeah? We disagree on that. That's fine. We did a 2-hour debate on that. I want you to actually answer my question. Why can you not tolerate...
Finish off. I leave the question to the end because you've got 3 minutes to talk.
It's fine, but this is the main gist of my conversation is there are so many states around the world that were born in much more violent conditions. Take India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan was created in 1947, the year before Israel was created. 1 million people were killed. Millions were displaced. Much greater scale than Israel-Palestine. The reason why you're not complaining about the Pakistanis, Indian wars, where far more property was lost, where far more refugees were created, was because it doesn't involve Masjid al-Aqsa. For you, this is explicitly a religious conversation. Not for me it's a secular thing. I believe in a secular state, a secular Israel. I believe in the detachment of the church and state, of the synagogue and state. So, for you, I don't believe that is the case, but maybe I'm making a straw man against you, so I'll be very interested to hear your answer there. The second point was...
15 seconds.
I've got 15 seconds, okay, forget the second point. Well,
Okay, alright. So, you see, this is what you expect. You expect to stand with a Muslim and for them to make a religious case. I have not made a religious case. I have not spoken about Masjid al-Aqsa. That's what you have said. And then you have the nerve to say that I am straw manning you. I have not made the arguments you are refuting today.
Not
Yeah,
today.
no, I have not made those arguments in my life, and you'll never find anything in the public record of me saying anything about a Muslim settlement or something like that, or discussion about Islamic Palestine. I've never done it. I've only had the same conversation as you're having. However, you have to differentiate between Islam and Judaism, in the sense that Islam is a religion and Judaism is a religion and an ethnicity. So it's a ethnic religious grouping. I've asked you a question, it's a very simple question. How is it and when can it be the case, if we believe in a racial equality, if we believe in egalitarian principles with race, how could it be the case that you believe that a state can be established on the basis of race, that you can expel a whole grouping of people, in this case Arabs, replace them with another grouping of people, and that can be justified politically or otherwise, morally, because of some kind of archaeological 2,000-year-old case that you're making for it? It's as absurd, actually more absurd, than the Vikings, the Anglo-Saxons and the Normans all having a discussion here in Speaker's Corner, debating about who should own the land. It's ridiculous, sir. No one makes the case except for you. No one makes the case except for Zionists, because it's the heart of their project. Really, it's a racially exclusivist project which depends at heart on the Jewish personality, the Jewish person, and it must at heart exclude everybody else. I've never seen you talk about sorry, Kurds. Wait a minute. Kurds don't have a unified homeland. Kurds don't have unified, Gypsies don't have a unified homeland. They do not have a unified homeland. It's not the case in our worldly dialogues that if I say that the Kurds shouldn't have a homeland or the Gypsies shouldn't have a homeland, that would not be considered racist. But according to people like yourself, if I say that this homeland is illegitimate or undemocratic or illegal, then I am being anti-Semitic. You see here, you're applying different measures of moral equivalence. Here, if you have this idea about the Jews, then surely it should surely it should be racist for me to say that a Kurdish state is not feasible, is not possible, is not legitimate, is not democratic. But you, my friend, and people like you, Zionists, have never made the case for the Kurds, have never made the case for the Gypsies, have never made the case for any other nomadic people who are scattered around the world without a homeland. You continually make the case for Jews because you have a Jewish prejudice and you are completely exclusivist in your racial thinking.
Okay, so if you actually go and follow my activity, which you clearly don't, I campaign for Kurdistan. I actually have posts all over the Israel advocacy movement campaigning for the Kurds. So that aside, I want to actually deal with the crux of your conversation. And it literally comes back to numbers again. Anybody who's watching this, we've only got a few cameras, anyone who's watching this, shout out to, actually I'm not going to shout out all the channels. If you look at a nation like Saudi Arabia, which is a Muslim country, there are 0 religious Jews allowed to practice there. Jews aren't allowed citizenship there, yeah? So if you look at a country like Saudi Arabia, there are no Jews. If you look at Israel, 20% of the population are ethnic Arabs who have complete equality with the Jews. Salam Gibran, who is an ethnic Arab Christian, is the highest judge in Israel, and he sent a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president to jail. The Christian Arabs are the best educated religious minority in Israel.
Say that again?
The Christian Arabs are the best performing in terms of qualifications from universities and schools, religious minority, or religious group, not minority, religious group in Israel, yeah? So that's the relationship of Arabs and Jews in Israel. Now let's look at the Arabs and Jews in Saudi Arabia. There are none. Now let's look at the Arabs and Jews in Iran. The Jews cannot serve in the military. The Jews cannot take up office to many positions in government above Muslims. So you talk about Jews being an ethnicity, which is correct, but it is also a religion, which you ignored, in the sense that you can convert.
I said both.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can convert. So just like for me to go to Saudi Arabia, I need to convert to Islam, yeah? I need to take the Shahada, and then I can go on Hajj. Until then, I'm forbidden from even entering the cities of Mecca and Medina. I'm forbidden from driving down certain roads. Israel's the complete opposite. There are many non-Jews that are residing there, that have full citizenship, be they Arab, be they recent immigrants. You don't have to convert to Judaism to move to Israel. unlike in the Muslim nations. So you present your worldview as being more pluralistic, but it's not pluralistic at all, because it abolishes anyone from a different faith group from even entering the city of Mecca and Medina.
All right, so let me just quickly answer what he's saying. City of Mecca, Medina. Mecca, quickly to answer what he said. Mecca, where the pilgrimage happens, is one of the largest gatherings in the world. Usually people, when they congregate and they come around the Kaaba, there are many deaths that happen because of stampeding, etc. There are millions of people, over 1 million people that congregate on Hajj. Now what you're saying is, let's have a visitor's visa so that we can make it an even more overcrowded situation in Mecca, and so we can have even more Muslims killed and go back to your policies of ethnic cleansing that you're used to. But having said that, what I'm saying is, actually, what you said about Iran, about Saudi Arabia, about all the other countries, is none of my business. I'm not an ambassador to Iran. I'm not an ambassador to Saudi Arabia. If you wanted to have a go at one of those individuals, you can go stand outside with your placard, outside of their embassies, and try and do what you want to do. That's point number one. Point number two, you've completely ignored what I've said. The reason why I keep talking about King David is because it's unanimously agreed upon almost everyone, all of the international organizations, including the Haganah, by the way, that they were a terrorist organization which committed a terrorist attack. The reason why I highlight that in particular is because I want to expose the fact that when it comes to Jewish terrorism, you're acquiescent. You are okay with it. You don't even want to label it as Jewish terrorism. You don't even want to identify that the killing of civilian people, whether they be British or Palestinian, by Jews is something which is terroristic. If I had been in your position and said the same things, that would be front page news. You have to understand here, people would be attacking me left, right and center. You think you are protected because you are a Jew, and that if people say that the Irgun, who, by the way, the Haganah condemned, the Irgun, who became the Israeli government, became parts of vital organs of the Israeli government, they are terroristic at core and had an extermination policy, which we can trace now because of the documents of the Israeli Defense Force. It's not UN documents that you reject. We're talking about the Israeli Defense Force itself. It's 1998, they released it 50 years afterwards. Which one? I'll tell you all the documents how it's my time. 1998, they released the documents because they do it like in the UK 50 years after the event. In 98, it showed that the Haganah and others, they had very specific commands to go into villages and to examine. You can look at the works of Ilan Pappé, which I know who is a Jew, by the way, who is a Jewish Israeli who's not allowed in Israel. Norman Finkelstein, a Jewish Israeli, is not allowed in Israel, but he's a Jew though, isn't he? The law of return should bring him back. But no, because he's anti-Zionist, he's not allowed in. Anyone who goes against the Zionist policy in the place of democracy and freedom of speech, yeah, 30 seconds is fine. In the place of democracy and freedom of speech, is meant to be the only democracy in the Middle East. Anyone who goes against the Zionist policy is either an anti-Semite or they're not even allowed to reside in the nation which they're meant to have rights to go back to. What kind of nonsense is this? Are you actually going to stand here and tell me that this place is a democratic place of free speech? My friend, why don't you condemn the Irgun? Why don't you condemn the ethnic cleansing? Why don't you condemn the fact that the Gazans have been blockaded and are being killed until this day?
So again, Mohammed, you can build as many strawmen. You can build as many strawmen as you like. But I will just encourage people to look at the numbers every time. You talk about ethnic cleansing, look at the numbers. There's over 1.6 million Arabs in Israel. There are 0 Jews in the Palestinian areas. There are 1.6 Arabs in Israel. There are 0 Jews in Saudi Arabia.
Who cares?
There are 0.
Who cares?
That's the problem. You only
Who cares?
Care,
Who
you
cares?
don't care about Jews.
I didn't say I didn't care about Jews.
You prove that.
You keep saying this.
You
keep saying I don't care about Jews. I didn't say. Oh, hold on. I didn't laugh at the Holocaust. Where did I laugh at the Holocaust?
It's on video.
Okay, no, it's on video. Go and check it on. Go and check it out.
Yeah. Check out Mohammed laughing at the Holocaust.
Yeah. I was laughing at you laughing. I was laughing at you continually saying the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust. Everything, you have to start the sentence with the Holocaust or my people are being persecuted. When I have a conversation with this black man here or that black man here, he's like, my people have been enslaved for 400, 500, 600 years. If I have a conversation with every ethnic group whose people have been persecuted and they start the sentence with my people have been persecuted, I'm going to find that they're either a parrot, a robot, ignorant, they need to go to the hospital. To be accused of anti-Semitism shows that you have no, this is what they do. Throw the anti-Semitism card whenever you feel like you're being under attack or whenever you feel like, you're losing the argument. That's a weak thing to do.
I'll tell you what, Mohammed.
That's a weak thing to do.
Mohammed, it's born out of necessity because many people...
When have I ever laughed at the Holocaust? When?
last week.
I didn't laugh at the Holocaust.
Okay, anyone just go on the internet.
Okay, go on the internet. Let's go.
It's the
No, hold on.
same
Let's do it now because that's a very hard accusation. Yeah. So let's get the video out. You put it on your Twitter. Let's get it. No, let's get it.
Laughing at your cries. Yeah. He was laughing at you.
No.
Mohammed,
Fine.
did you?
You're becoming emotional.
Did you?
Yeah, you're abusing it. What do you have to do with the people that you are not involved in the Holocaust? No, hold on. You yourself are using your family's suffering as a way